Why? Hello and welcome everybody. Also good morning. So today I wanted to go ahead and show you guys Project Lifestack for Righteous Fire. It is a very expensive build. You can transition into it from my classic League starter. So if you want to get started with the character, you can always come to my website here and yoink the POB for the League start. I'll be updating the Lifestack POB here later. This is non-mage blood. My current character is maybe close to around a mirror due to market prices and inflation. If it wasn't for that, it'd be about half the cost. A large amount of my currency going into a Foulborn Wrathpith here, which is about 160 Divine. I bought it for 30 on League Start. Mage Blood, which is not needed to start the build. Adorned, which I would recommend for the build. For Adorned breakpoints, you have 75, 88, and 100. 75 being on the lowest. And then the next part where a lot of currency goes into is the voices. Although to be fair, you do not need 3 passive voices like you see here. You can function totally fine off of 5 passives and just spend 2 extra points. All it's really going to do is just take away 2 life nodes. So, and the difference between, if you would like a comparison here, the difference between a 5 passive voices is 120 chaos versus a 3 passive voices being 175 divines. So that basically means you're paying 175 divines for these 2 nodes, right? So you don't have to commit all the way to the super expensive stuff. All right, with that being said, we'll talk about this stuff later. You guys saw the entry-level video before, so we're going to go ahead and jump into an Uber, something I don't usually do on Righteous Fire builds. Now, with this being said, I could boost my single target damage a lot, but my helmet is currently favored for mapping, which is why I have increased area of effect. If I swap the increased area of effect for concentrated effect, it would be like 30% more damage. So that is just one thing to point out. Let's go jump into a quick Uber Eater. Okay. Now this character, if you look at my bar at the bottom right, you're going to notice it is using Vol Righteous Fire. Vol Righteous Fire is effectively our single target here. Don't worry about the gigantic hits, that's us doing damage to ourselves. Just realized this is a terrible MTX to try to see the orbs because they're like the same color. Just gonna wait for this and then wait for the beam and we'll Vol RF. Oh, you know, that was a little spooky. Okay, maybe don't Vol RF during a beam. We call that a skill issue. Oop. Oop. Drowning orbs, no. Drowning orbs, no. Okay. So that's a quick Uber Eater. I mean, quick regarding Righteous Fire. So that is the single target variant. I'm going to show you the mapping variant that I prefer, which you don't have to do. So we're going to use a few regrets here. This is utilizing the Priest of Yamak bloodline, which is allowing us to basically chain Vol RF in the middle of boss fights, which is really nice. I'm going to remove Yamak, and I'm going to place Ramako back, as that's my favorite mapping node personally. It kicks off a lot of map modifiers, Ellie res mods, Fire and Ignite res mods, you know, Soul Eaters that are Giga Chad, get a lot more tamed with this node. Now, by doing this swap, we have a jewel over here called Sublime Vision. I can thank my buddy Convey for this. So this allows us to dual curse with Malevolence. I'm going to put back my regular Adorn Jewel. You can see the life pool shoot up. And then over here in the boots, we have Elemental Weakness and Flammability alongside with Bane. We're removing those and we're putting back Punishment, Blood Rage, and Frostblink. If you want Frostblink on your Ubers, I just drop Enhance here. I'm using Enhance, Scorching Ray, and Eclipse. So basically you can juice the exposure granted from the Scorching Ray here. Another thing to get more damage would be getting Scorch on my boots, but I prefer the 2 max res so I don't have to run another Adorn Jewel for max res. Okay, With that being said, I'm just going to plug in Scorching Ray of Immolation here. You don't really need to do this, but Scorching Ray of Immolation has higher base damage, and that's why we run it. I'm going to go ahead and jump into a Juiced Breach to show you guys the mapping experience. So I have an Astrolabe Breach here. Let's see here, what's the Atlas on? Atlas is full Breach Beyond with map modifier effect. I run something a little different. I go double unstable, double rare monster modifier, and pack size. You can also do the Scarab that makes the breaches more difficult. It's not a big deal. You'll see from the mapping here. I can run most mods. I do have a regex. I can post the regex in the in the YouTube comments if you want to see the regex that I use. I'm not going to full clear this. I'm just going to give you an example of how breaching goes on the map clear. And then the rest will just be for yapping about the build, basically. So here's triple breach, for example. If you pay attention to the bottom right, I can't fucking see shit. If you pay attention to the bottom right, you can see the kill counter. That's a good way to show the Hinakura that's constantly off-screening and basically chaining the proliferations, right? Rarity. And what do we got here? Basic currency. Then you can just simply come up to the rares. They're going to just die from prolif. If they don't die to prolif, you do have Vol RF like this that you can do. Vol RF will take care of most of the stuff. Even if you're not in the single target variant, I like to run a Soulwick rune, which grants 1 ball soul per second. This is especially nice with Righteous Fire because sometimes you need a little bit more damage and you don't have it, right? And that's where you just hit the Vol RF button. The reason we recover so quickly after Vol Righteous Fire is Defiance of Destiny. When you recover 24% of your missing life and you have 20,000 life, you just don't really have an issue on the defensive side. I mean, you can die from time to time, don't get me wrong, but it's very, very unlikely that you die. Even if you run into something in Vol RF, as long as your build is set up correctly, it's most likely fine. So, like, I'll run into the rares here, and they'll just heal me to full. I get a lot of questions about MTX. Not that anyone can see anything right now, but you probably saw at the beginning. I'll just take a second to flash that for people to see, and then we're going to pop out of this breach here. That doesn't matter. Where's the map? All side over here. This should also be a 60% Delirium map that we have going. I could do higher Deli if needed. You can see, where is it on the right here? We have 60 Deli. Just for a number showcase, my tooltip damage is currently... Oh, actually, I just realized I've been doing this without Malevolence the whole time. Whoops. Okay, so I swear the Uber fight would have been much better. I forgot to put on Malevolence. That was my fault. That's whoopsie-daisy there. Malevolence actually supercharges our damage. I can't believe I did that without an aura. I'm not used to the Eternal Blessing because the Eternal Blessing confuses me because, like, you know, your mana is always reserved with Blood Magic. I swear the Uber would have been much faster. Okay. So that Eternal Blessing takes the tooltip, if you're curious, from 4 million to 5 million, so 20% more damage, and then we have even more with our Frenzy charges, so assume that the Uber fight was, like, faster, right? Okay. Now let's talk about the character and everything we have going. I guess we'll flash the gear first. So Nebulous, you're just looking for one implicit that gives decent damage. There's a lot. You can find them on my website. Increased damage, fire damage, burning damage. Those are probably 3 prime ones. You can also go with quality and try to socket your Scorching Ray in so that you can super juice the exposure. I also have Volatile Valor Mine for the 11% LE down at the bottom. So this Nebulous gives like 500% increase. Not the biggest deal. You can just go with the standard Nebulous because my Foulborn Wrathpith gives me like 1000% increase, right? So that doesn't really matter too much. The whole build does function on the Foulborn Wrathpith, as without your Foulborn Wrathpith, the build quite literally just doesn't work. If I were to take off my Wrathpith, let me just turn off the Malevolence first. So I'm currently at like 337, and then if I take out the Wrathpith, I'm 140. So Wrathpith is quite literally half of my damage. The other half comes from the Adorn Jewel. So that is where 2 vectors of scaling come in. The ring is actually very easy to craft. It's just expensive. You just buy Essence of Delirium and you slam them on a Manifold Ring. Manifold Ring can only have 1 suffix, so it will always be damage over time multi. And then you slam till you get a T1 life roll, and then you missed it, and you hope you get lucky. The Mist has a lot of different ranges you can roll, so you're just pretty much trying to not fuck yourself over with the mods. Life and dot multi is big. For example, if I take the ring off, let's put our buffs back on, right? So we're currently 5.5 mil. The ring goes off, it's 3 mil, right? You can see the HP scaling too, very big. Combs are pretty cool. A lot of HP with new Volatile Val Orb. You can get higher values of HP. You can also Tailoring Orb, but that's like, who knows how many mirrors it is to get that. So 1190 HP Combs, pretty happy. Helmet. Helmet's really annoying. You Essence of Horror spam the suffixes till you get Burning with more Ellie, and then you work on the prefixes with Wild Bristle Matron. I settled on my increased area of effect in level 18 burn, and I was happy with that. If you plan on only bossing, Conk Effect would be a lot better, as an example. Okay, my boots, pretty simple. We just buy the Fracture for life, we Chaos Spam Essence and hope for T1 regen and any res, and then we can swap it around. And then you Wild Bristle Matron your prefixes, and then same thing with your gloves. They're exactly the same. All right, so all the gear has been covered. Defiance of Destiny, because we don't go block, and that helps us with recovery. I'm going to cover the gems real fast. I got Life Tap, Faster Attack, Shield Charge, and that's to trigger Life Taps here. I also have a Swift Affliction, Righteous Fire, Life Tap, Elemental Focus setup over in the helmet. You don't want to imbue, because if you imbue, you lose your Vol Righteous Fire, and that is not ideal. Over here, we have Eternal Blessing, Empower, and Malevolence in the shield. The reason we can run Eternal Blessing is with Mage Blood, you get 9 max res from your Ruby Flask, which allows you to click Blood Magic. Over here, we have Punishment, Blood Rage, Frostblink, and Hexpass. Hexpass is to make it so you can apply curses to enemies who you normally cannot because they're hexproof, and they also don't do any crit damage to you, so that's pretty nice. In our gloves, Enhance, Scorching Ray of Immolation, Eclipse, and Diffuse Channeling. These two supports don't do anything. They only do something in the single target variant because you're scaling the exposure on the Scorching Ray. That pretty much covers the gear. You use the Calandra's Ring to mirror the Manifold, as the Manifold is by far the strongest thing you can get in that slot. Flasks, I like to run Quicksilver with Avoid Shock, Granite with Increased Armor. The suffixes can be on any flask, by the way, it doesn't matter. Regen Raid on an Amethyst. The reason we're using Amethyst is because of the Manifold. It's really hard to get Chaos Resistance. And then Ruby with chance to free Shock and Ignite. This just makes clearing feel a lot better. There's not really any other way to say it. And Cinder Swallow is kind of prime for mapping. You get Onslaught that you don't currently have because I have a Void Freeze on my boots. You could go with an Adorned round if you prefer and get Adorned so you don't need the Avoid Chill and then get Onslaught on the boots as well. You can do that instead. But this also gives Malediction, so mobs deal less damage and take increase. And then you get Life on Kill, which works really well because you Vol RF and then boom the screen and then you're full health. That's another way. Okay, passive tree. Pretty simple. It's just an Adorn Jewel tree, which means you are running the entire outline of the tree and socketing in clusters. As explained at the start of the video, you can start with either 8 passive fire, or you can just go straight into the cheaper voices, which is 5 passive. 5 passive voices is not expensive. They're about 90 chaos, which is really cheap in comparison to everything else. You're just spending 2 extra points, which means you're just going to drop 2 life nodes right here, right? That is the difference right there. 500 HP is the difference between 80 chaos and 174 divines. So don't feel intimidated when you see all the voices. Now, to fix attribute requirements, we go with a Elegant Hubris with Commemorate Kaspero. That allows us to get Supreme Ostentation, so we don't care about attributes. That means we don't have to worry about attributes, and that means we can tattoo everything. Over here, I've got Eternal Resilience, which is gain 1 endurance charge if you've been hit recently. That fixes all of our endurance charge sustain. The whole tree is primarily tatted with life regen. You can see here at the 0.3s. I have a 2% movement speed node on dexterity, and I have opted to go crit damage reduction. Even though I have a hex pass, when you're mapping, there's just a lot of instances of damage going on, so I just opted to take crit damage reduction. As for my jewels, pretty much everything is adorned, but let's get started. Adorned, increased damage, cannot be hindered. You can see these are all 8/7s, right? Increased damage. Over here, another one. I craft all my jewels and sell them. That's how I make most of my currency, so that is why you'll see a lot of implicits on mine. Over here, we have the actual Adorned jewel. The breakpoints are 75, 88, and 100. Over here, a Rational Doctrine, which creates us Consecrated Ground. This, paired with 1 jewel, gives us Curse Immunity, which is pretty nice. I will say, be a little careful with Rational Doctrine. You want to make sure your strength is always higher. Sometimes if you have like a random dex roll on your gear because of Mage Blood, you may actually have higher dexterity than strength if you tattoo everything, so pay attention to that, because then no consecrated ground. Okay, moving across, another Adorned Jewel. Moving across, Adorned, Adorned, and Adorned. You can get crazy AoE if you stack AoE on every single one of these, but good luck getting that. Over here, we have our Elegant Hubris. Coming down further, we have another Adorned. We've got our Soulwick rune that I really like for the vault charges. Down here, we've got standard Adorns. I think this is my 1 max res. No, not yet. This is reduced effective curses. Oh, I think did I already pass it? One of my jewels, I didn't pay attention to which. One of my jewels has 2% max fire res on it. You are going to need to run one 2% max fire res jewel, as if you do not, you're not going to be 90 max res. Another thing is you need to pair that jewel with an elevated max fire res here. Otherwise, you will be 89 max res, because my jewel gives 3%. I guess technically you could fix it by getting a 100% adorned. Here it is, right here. If you had an 100% adorned, then you'd get 4 max fire as well. So this is currently how I'm fixing that. And I guess that's pretty much the character. I'm a little sad we didn't get to do the Uber showcase with Malevolence on, as that's a very big deal. Actually, it's more than 20% more damage because we also get skill effect duration for the Vol Righteous Fire. So that was kind of just trolling, but I'm sure you guys believe me, the build does like decent single target. Anyway, that's pretty much the full rundown of this version. Like I said, I'll update my website. For now, I'll just put a POB in the comments. Give me like an hour because I have to like set up the config and everything. But that is pretty much about it. Hope you guys had a wonderful time. Hope you guys enjoyed yourselves. If you did, please feel free to like, share, and subscribe. And don't forget, you can catch me streaming live every day at twitch.tv/Pohx. Take care, and I'll see you guys all tomorrow.